Okay, since it's now 7 o'clock, we'll bring the Mashpee Board of Health meeting to order. Our first order of business tonight will be expense warrants.
This one?
Stealing it.
So for our landfill stuff, right? The tie and bond?
I'm sorry?
The tie and bond is for our landfill.
That's correct, yeah.
How are they with their reporting? Are they getting to you?
They're getting better.
Getting timely? Okay, that's good. Okay, review and approve the Board of Health public session minutes for November 2nd, 2017. Does anybody have any comments or amendments to the
I
minutes?
just had one comment, and that was changing the 30 mil liner to 40 mil. I think 40 is the standard. That was it.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I would agree with that. Okay, I take a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll abstain since he wasn't present.
Okay.
I second that. I approve the minutes with the,
Oh, we just need the motion.
November 2nd.
that's all, just a motion to accept
Yeah.
the minutes from, Board of Health minutes from November 2nd.
Mhm. I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item number 3, request for a 2018 retail food permit for Knockabout Beer Company at 13 Lake Avenue. If you could get us started, Glenn, please.
The applicant is here.
Oh, excellent.
Still your file.
Yep. The Department of Public Health requires that all alcohol serving establishments obtain a food establishment permit from the Board of Health. The food at this location is planned to be served by a mobile food truck that will obtain its own mobile food permit when they get it built or purchased, or whenever they want to put it on the property. We'll do the permitting separately for that mobile food truck. So this is just merely to meet the requirement of the Department of Public Health. I believe the state also permits the alcohol and the beer brewing process separately, which Peter can describe.
Okay. If you could just introduce yourself, please, for the microphone.
I'm Peter Murner, owner of Knockabout Beer, 13 Lake Avenue,
Mhm.
Route 130. And we're here to apply for our retail food permit,
Mhm.
and are hoping to open in early 2018, month of January. Like Glenn mentioned, we are going to be having a food truck on site, which will be handled as a separate entity to provide food in the more traditional sense, which you might see in a restaurant. Our permitting for alcohol happens through both federal government, state government, and local government. So working with the ABCC at a statewide level, and then the selectmen locally on the quorum permit.
Just a quick question, we don't have to do serve safe or anything with this particular, because it's going to be a separate entity?
Yeah, I believe so, because
Not
the beer brewing is going to be mainly the food that is offered in this facility, and all of the other food that's prepared is gonna be done on the mobile food truck.
So who oversees like the making of the beer? Like, so is that with the state and local?
It's really the state that does the inspections for the
Oh.
brewing, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, but it's just that the way the regulations are set up, they also require a retail food permit for the sale of the beer through the Board of Health. So this is covering that requirement.
okay. Good.
Do you have any questions for?
We did the floor plan review, they're pretty close to their build-out, but we did the floor plan review for the building permit and a pretty major renovation of the existing Taylor's Family Restaurant that was there. So I'm sure Peter's itching to get going.
Yes, I'll come check it out.
I'm happy for you.
I'm excited about it.
I know, I can walk there. Oh, inappropriate.
Okay, well, if we don't have any other questions, I guess we could take a motion to,
I move to approve the retail food permit for 2017 and 2018 for Knockabout Beer pending final inspection by one of the health agents.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful evening.
You too. Good luck.
Let's see, item number 4, request for a 2018 residential kitchen permit for Chop Chigyu, am I saying that?
Chop
I know,
Chig.
say it.
Chop Chig Farm at 56 Josephine Bend. Glenn, if you could give us a little background on this one.
Sure. I just gave you my comments on that, too.
Okay.
Okay, Emma Mills Brennan has submitted her application and would like to prepare foods in her home in accordance with a residential kitchen permit. She has obtained her serve-safe certificate, which she provided, but the menu, allergy awareness, and the final inspection are yet to be done. So I just like to have approval pending those items. And then also, she is requesting that she be able to sell her products at the temporary food events for one fee and not pay the individual daily temporary fee of $50. And the board has approved that annual fee for other residential kitchen permits, so they can sell their food at the temporary events for an annual permit fee of $100, which the board has done before. So those two items.
Is there anyone here tonight to present on this particular?
I don't think she's there. No.
Do you guys have any questions or comments for this one?
Did she provide a date when she would be able to give you the allergen awareness certification and menu? I mean, it's a quick session, so.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't set all this up for the meeting, and then I didn't look at it, but Ronnie talked to her, and she was very excited about getting her serve-safe
That's the biggest.
test
Yeah.
passed, and so I don't think it's a big deal. It's online, and I think she's still getting things ready to do at the house, so I don't think she's even ready for the in-home inspection just yet. So I think we have a little bit of time.
It's not the case of where she's already up and running and just waiting on this.
No, she's not up and running yet. We have not done anything as far as an inspection yet.
Conditions? So we can go ahead and do that, right? Even, okay. So I move to approve the residential kitchen permit for 2017 and 18 for Emma Mills Brennan pending submittal of a menu, allergy awareness certificate, and satisfactory final inspection by a health agent, and approve the annual temporary food event fee of $100.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What is she making?
I know. The other.
I'm assuming a baked good of some sort since it's.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. She may have told me she started this whole process back in May, so I've forgotten what she's gonna make.
We should have time for number 5. Animal inspector update for 2017-28 season. From Ronnie Warden.
Yeah, the animal inspectors went out and did their annual barn inspections where they checked out both the horses and all of the domestic animals. And they count them and they check them for potential for spread of disease, make sure that the animals are being treated humanely, and also they have sanitary conditions. And there's a breakdown of the number of domestic animals that are quarantined for the calendar year, or actually it's May 1st, April 30th, as far as their, when they are issued their certification from the state. So Ronnie and Don Chicoine, who is the animal control officer, are the two animal inspectors appointed by the board and by the state, and they've submitted their invoices now that they have done their annual barn inspections.
Total domestic animals. 10 chickens? There must be a lot more chickens out there, but I'm just,
Yeah, there are a lot more chickens, but those are the chickens that are just at the barns. The chickens themselves don't need to be permitted individually, so everyone who has backyard chickens aren't really included unless we go there for some other complaint,
right.
whether it being rodents or odors.
Oh, okay.
So that's when we usually catch up with just the people who have chickens. If they're not taking care of the manure, or if they're not taking care of the feed, we end up getting called.
Right.
But they don't need a permit themselves like the barns do.
Right, that was gonna be my next question. It's an at-will kind of
Yeah.
right, basically, unless there's an issue.
Yeah, it's a by right per the zoning, yep.
Interesting. 2 alpacas. one-
But I do kind of keep track of them, just because of the avian flu.
Yeah,
Right.
it's good to know. It's good information to have.
We've had notices come down from the CDC about, potential for spread of the avian flu through chickens. And so we kind of keep a running tally of the chickens that we see in town.
Mhm. No rooster complaints, that's good.
That's really good.
Cool. That one requires, do we need to
What does it require?
vote to accept the report or anything like that? I don't think we
No, I
do.
don't think so,
Okay.
because it's already approved through the budget,
Just an
the
informational.
animal inspector fees.
Cool. All right. We got 1 minute till 7:15, so we'll just wait for a minute here for our first appointment.
Yeah, there isn't going to be anybody showing up for this, I heard from the office.
That was, yeah, they aren't coming, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Can we still discuss it, or do we need to continue it to a different meeting?
I don't think there's any need to continue.
Okay.
They certainly have had ample time to contact us, and I called them this afternoon to see if anyone was coming, and then they made
Email, so that-
the last-minute changes, and they were incomplete even when they were done, so.
Okay. Well, it's 7:15, so our next item will be the show cause hearing for the septic inspection violation of 57 Camden Lane.
Okay. The septic inspection performed on June 9, 2017 by Jason Haskell was reported as a pass, but should have been needs further evaluation by local brewing authority. Order letters were sent out September 25th and October 25th, notifying the septic inspector of the deficiency in the pending show cause hearing. Telephone calls were made to the inspector's office, and the important date that I figured on the call that was made to the office was June 19th, because later I learned that the owner of the property sold the property on July 14th, 2017. So the septic inspection was done June 9th, and then the property was sold July 14th. So it was really just a little over a month after the inspection was done. So it ends up that our Board of Health written orders were sent after the property had already transferred. We had no idea when the property transferred, but they received all of our letters, and we certainly spoke with people in the office. Nobody alerted us to the fact that the property had been sold, and we let them know that there were deficiencies. The two deficiencies, there was no well sample taken, and the risers weren't brought up to grade, so the property was transferred with those deficiencies. So, at this point, just when I made the phone call this afternoon to the office, there was a last-ditch effort to make a change to the inspection report, but then again, the inspection report, the change that was made, were incomplete. They just changed the front page to needs further evaluation, but it still says pass on the second page. So, and it's moot anyways, because the property's transferred. The administrative assistant, or division manager that she calls herself for the company All Clear Septic that the inspector works for, said that there were two other inspections that the inspector had done in town. I did look at both of those. They were in compliance. One was a conditional pass and one was a needs further evaluation. So I think it was just the first inspection that he had done in town where he didn't know the requirements. But because the property is transferred, the owners now own a property where the risers have not been up to grade and there was no well sample taken, so.
Have they been notified?
No, I just found out who they were tonight. I had no idea the property had transferred.
Okay. Just to be clear, nobody's here for this particular issue tonight? No? Okay. Just to cover that. Well, it sounds like something that could have been cleared up pretty easily.
Right.
Way back in June. Clearly, they were. Remiss in their responsibility. So we're looking at fines, and we could also potentially revoke their permit to be able to do septic inspections in town.
Right.
Okay.
You didn't talk about that when you called?
I'm
You
sorry?
didn't talk about that when you called, you just notified them today when you called?
Yeah, I notified them about the show cause hearing, but they got written notification of,
Okay,
and just asked them if they were gonna send anybody.
okay,
And I told them there will probably be fines issued and
All right.
and his license may be revoked. And so I think that's why when we got the email tonight, it mentioned that the inspector has done other inspections in town.
okay.
Yeah, it's really didn't need to get to this point. It's unfortunate.
But they ignored our phone calls when we did contact the office.
Yeah,
We did call him to notify him.
and the letter, multiple letters.
I guess if we were to go the route of revoking their permit, maybe as an additional step, notifying Newey Pick, who is the licensing agency or licensing organization for septic inspectors of the situation, so that it ends up on their record.
Who is that?
New England Water, Interstate.
Something, yeah, they do the soil evaluator.
No,
As far
okay,
as the state?
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
because DEP doesn't do the licensing
Right.
directly for those. They took over the courses and all that stuff, so they do the soil evaluator, wastewater treatment plant operator,
Okay.
and system inspector, so I believe that they would, well, they
Be
might not hold the
interested.
record, the board of, is there a board of system inspectors? I don't know.
I think there is because I think when anyone has a complaint about an inspection, they still notify, like if you go to DEP's website, they have like a link and information on who you notify if you have a complaint about your
It's a state
inspector.
certification, so
But-
they must
right.
go through the licensure board
Mm-hmm.
for sanitarians and septic inspectors and the soil evaluators.
Yeah, it's all advertised on the state website, so.
Yeah, yeah. So I would recommend that as an additional step then, is to notify them of this, that, their license in town has been revoked
And why?
and why, so that in the future, when they reapply for their license, that's there, so. Okay. What do you guys think about the recommended
Yeah, I
penalties
think
for
those are
this?
the appropriate steps. I mean, it certainly did not need to get to this point. There were multiple efforts made on behalf of the town to try to rectify it, so.
Mhm. Mhm. Laurel?
I think it sounds fair, what you're saying, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Are you looking to issue a fine, not issue a fine, or revoke or not revoke?
I think both are in order. I mean, they could have just rectified this with a simple.
Or even showed up tonight to
Showed
up,
state why
anything.
we shouldn't issue the fine or
Yeah,
revoke the license. Yeah.
So if they want to appeal it at some point, they can, but I
Yeah.
think, from my perspective, I think both are in order. So, yeah,
I move to issue a $300 fine and to revoke the septic inspector's permit, Mr. Jason Haskell, and to inspect septic systems in Mashpee for 1 year or until the fine is paid and the inspector comes before the board to have the permit reissued. I also move that NUIPIC or the appropriate state point of contact for the septic inspector's license is notified of his permit being revoked and why.
I second that.
I hit everything.
You did, you did.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that was good.
Okay, our 7:20 appointment, show cause, housing code violations at 62 Musket Lane.
Okay. At the last meeting, our notices, both the first-class mail and the certified mail, were returned so that there was no legal service of those notices. So we had a second address and the letters were resent, they were received, and the owner contacted us, and the assistant agent did an inspection and did witness that the two remaining violations were corrected. So,
Good.
at this point, I don't think any further action is warranted, because they've been corrected.
Nice.
Nice.
Great.
Oh, we don't see that much. That's good.
Okay, is there anybody here to present to this tonight? No? Okay. Any other questions, comments?
No,
Do we need to dismiss this? Do we need a formal vote to dismiss?
Yeah,
the-
vote to dismiss, because there were orders issued.
Okay. Whoever wants to make that motion.
I move to dismiss the orders of correction against Mr. George Cummings concerning 62 Musket Lane.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I believe we had one new business item remaining. A variance request to allow grease recovery device inside the building in lieu of the required grease trap in the ground outside the building at 628 Main Street.
Okay. Okay, the applicant is here, and Mrs. Vanessa Benoit is the owner and operator of a baking and catering business where she would like to expand to a larger operating space. She is requesting a variance to not install a 1,000-gallon grease trap in the ground at the above facility, which is owned by PA Landers, and to install a grease recovery device instead. It was reported the cost of the in-ground grease trap was prohibitive, so the use of the grease recovery device is requested. The board has approved these devices in the past on 3 occasions. Previous conditions required were that the Big Dipper point source automatic grease removal system, model W500IS, and any variation of the model will require Board of Health approval, and a high-temp commercial dishwasher shall not be connected to the grease recovery device. The bakery and catering permit application's also been submitted along with the check for the food establishment fee. However, the certified food manager and allergy awareness certificates have not been provided, and the final floor plans have not been submitted, so there's still plenty of time to approve the bakery and catering permit itself. And the applicant is here.
Okay. All right. Would you like to say anything tonight? You can step up to the mic and just introduce yourself.
If you have questions,
Okay.
I love the space. It's been vacant for a really long time, and it would be great to get in there and expand what I currently am doing.
Oh, if you could just
If you're gonna
step to
talk,
the
you
mic.
gotta go
Just-
to the
Yeah,
podium.
sorry.
Sorry.
Just
It's
for the
okay.
official
It's
record.
okay. I try to hide in the kitchen.
It's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I don't know. Do you have questions for me? I don't.
Do you guys have any specific?
So the products that you make, this is your menu that we receive here. It's cakes, correct?
I do cakes and I do petite pastries. So my main focus is weddings. However, I do special events as well. So I also do an espresso bar, edible favors. But everything that I currently do is pretty much all, pick up or delivered items. So, and what I'm looking to do with this space is have a increased size in the kitchen production space. And I currently rent an office space to do tastings in, so it would be really wonderful to have everything all together in one space instead of the additional runaround. So the size of the space would give me the opportunity to do that.
The requirement for the grease trap was kind of a large stumbling block because of the cost to put an in-ground grease trap, a 1,000-gallon grease trap in the ground. So I don't think you've gotten that much farther with your plans until you know whether you can do the grease
Yeah.
trap or not.
I halted because it was
Yeah.
we got quotes between $16,000 and $20,000. So that was just, and there's already work, as you know, getting into a new space, there's already plumbing and electrical and such to be done. That's very pricey, so.
Yeah, these grease recovery devices aren't cheap either, but they're certainly not $15,000.
Not that much money. yeah.
What kind of a capacity do they have? I mean, is it pretty comparable? Were there other stipulations that accompanied the approval in previous, incarnations?
There are certain models with certain size for certain flows.
Gotcha.
So there is the ability to change the units based upon flow. But they're essentially built to be installed below a 3-bay sink. They don't get put in the floor like a regular grease interceptor because they're mechanical. The way that they work is that they work on a timer, and they're about the same size as a 40-pound regular grease interceptor, so they're a little bit bigger than a bread box. But what they have is this little windshield washer. It actually has a metal shield that dips down into the warmed grease. The grease is collected, and then at 2 or 3 a.m., the heater kicks on, it warms and melts the grease, and this metal shield dips down into the grease, and as the shield pulls back, there's a windshield wipe, a set of rubber like windshield wipers that essentially squeegee the grease into a little trough, and the trough takes it to a collection container outside of the grease recovery device.
Where does the
So-
collection container go? Is it like next to it?
It's attached.
It's right next to it.
Yeah,
It's
part of it.
about, I'd say, a 2-quart container that's next to the grease recovery device. And so, because it's on a timer, it does need some maintenance, and we have had issues with other ones, so that's one thing that if you have it, you need to take care of it.
It looked like it was something that can basically be emptied daily. I mean, it's so different than a regular
Yeah.
grease trap.
Right.
It's
It has,
fantastic.
it has a basket in it to catch coarse food, and that can be taken out and then dumped in the trash. And then it has a second compartment where the grease is collected and where the shield dips into it when it's heated, and then moves the grease into the little collection container on the side. So they're neat units. I first knew about them, the lobster pot in Provincetown in 1986. So they've been around for a while. And Barnstable went through a lengthy testing scenario because they had such issues with grease in their sewer collection system. So even though they still had in-ground grease traps, the grease was getting through them and into the sewer system, and so they required the restaurants to have these grease recovery devices. And Sue Rask, when Sue was on the Barnstable board, did a pretty comprehensive testing of the grease and to the parts per million as far as what was discharged out of these devices. So they do have a good track record as far as their efficiencies. So I don't see an issue with them. They do work.
Is it something where we would need to see a service agreement? Are they self-servicing where she can maintain it
It's
herself?
self-servicing,
or-
especially for a facility this size. If it were for larger, like the subway that we ran into, I think at that point, it's worthy of seeing a service contract to make sure that it gets serviced properly, and also the grease gets thrown away correctly.
Right.
And not thrown back into the septic system.
Right, okay.
The other thing I will speak to, too, is just, aside from that, my current situation is that I have it's not technically residential, it is in my house, in the lower level of my house, my current kitchen, so I'm licensed commercial in Sandwich. But we are currently working off of a grease trap that's a 40-gallon grease trap out of the house that's going into my home septic. So anything we do, I'm very, very conscious of what's going down that drain. And I would continue to do the same just because I mean, you're literally ruining everything. So very conscious that way. I mean, obviously, as I grow, which I don't intend to be a factory type of thing, so I'm not trying to be a month. This is why I don't go. You know, I would still make sure that other people are just as conscious of that as well, so.
Okay. Seems pretty straightforward.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Just to let you know too, there's, for this facility to go, or for this use to go into this property is on a well, and I mention this because I don't think we have to address the actual food permit tonight, because there's still plenty of time to do that. Because the property's on a well, it's restricted because of, if the public, or once there's a food preparation, that well could be considered as it's a non-transient, it's a non-transient permitted well through the state. And I don't, as long as there's less than 25 people who work there for 60 days of the year, then that well is not considered a public well. So I think that through this use, and I have a letter written from the state saying that if there is a food establishment there and they use bottled water and not water from the well, then that well is not considered a public well. And that the reason why this property has sat for so many years is because it has this limitation on the number of people who can work there and the uses within the property. But, so this can never be a full-service food establishment where the public can go and visit it because of the well.
Right.
But if bottled water is used, and I've spoken to Vanessa about this as far for the limited menu that she has, that using bottled water for the bakery products, then that's not an issue, but that would have to be a condition of the board, that at least the food preparation use bottled water. I don't believe it covers the wash water part of it for washing the dishes, because it's either got to be 180-degree wash water or it's got to be sanitized through a chemical. So
Would she still need to have any sort of water testing if it's just wash water? Or would she need to have the well tested at all?
I don't believe so.
It's only if it's being used for like potable.
Right, as long as it's
Right.
not used for potable. As long as the drinking water is used for food prep and potable, then I don't believe that well has to be permitted as a public well.
Okay.
Because that's been one of the major stumbling blocks for this property, to get somebody,
Oh, it's that
Right, it'd be a
building.
good fit.
yeah, I think it will be good. It's a limited use. So I wanted the board to understand that before they, because if the board approves the grease trap, their next step would be to submit the floor plans
Right.
and their menus
not much down
and the application, serve safe allergy awareness to get
It's been a
a
bunch
full
of
food
stuff.
service permit.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I should have thought to bring that. I mean, I know we're not doing the food
Yep.
part
No,
tonight, but
no,
I do
we're
have.
not.
Yeah, you're fine.
So
There's
fine.
plenty of time to do that. I need to make the board aware of that, though.
Okay, and this whole building is vacant right now?
The whole building is
The
vacant,
whole
yeah.
building?
And this,
Wow.
but this is just a
Oh,
portion of
it's
the
just
building.
been purchased by PA Landers. It had been owned by an attorney for a long, long time, and there were several attempts to get some of the land around it to either relocate the well. The water district won't bring water down to it unless the Pickerel Cove subdivision people request town water. So the property is really kind of stuck in the middle. And the problem being that the protective radius for the well is not all on the property. If the protective radius was all on the property, then they could possibly permit it as a public well.
Could they
But
get any sort of
can't do that
easement or
because,
anything?
I'm
or
sorry?
Could they get any sort of easement or anything to cover that area?
Because it goes into the state right away, into Route 130.
Wow.
So it can't be any developed land.
Yeah.
And so, but that's always been the hindrance with the permitting of this property.
It's usually empty, yeah. It's been a few things.
The original retail use was fine, because as long as there's less than 25 people that work there, it met the original use.
Right, right. This is all, it was close to the base. Where, are we outside of the,
Outside of Zone 2?
outside of the
plume.
the plumes?
Yes.
Outside, okay.
Yes. The P11 plume is further west.
Further west, okay. Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, it's just outside the zone 2 as well.
It certainly sounds like it's the best scenario for this property. Like you said, there really isn't much else that they can do, at least food-wise there, so.
Right.
Now, should we address the commercial dishwasher as well? That should not, in the past, we have not allowed it to be connected to the grease.
Yeah, I think you'd have to make that a condition so that it doesn't push the grease through the grease trap.
Mhm. Okay. Okay.
I'm satisfied. I don't know if anyone else.
Sounds good.
I move to approve the variance for the grease recovery device What's the address here? At
628.
628 Main Street with the following conditions. 1, that the grease shall be disposed of into the refuse, not back into the septic system. 2, that the manufacturer and model number of the grease recovery device shall be approved by the Board of Health and the Plumbing Department. And 3, that a high-temperature commercial dishwasher shall not be connected to the grease recovery device.
I second that.
All in favor?
Quick question. Do I need to include the bottled water in this, or will that be dealt with later?
No, that'll be dealt with when they come in for their food establishment
And
permit.
you also said the service agreement, like, would that be in this too?
No, I think it was decided that we would not need a
Okay.
service agreement.
Okay.
It's okay, so, yeah, that
Okay,
motion's
good.
And just one more note, and I don't think it needs to be a condition, just when you load the dishwasher, be sure to scrape as much off of each.
Right.
Because
I
you
don't
can get a lot
actually
of
have
grease.
one, and I wasn't planning on getting one.
Oh, okay.
I was just gonna stick with the 3 bay sinks.
Yeah.
So that's
that's
worked
fine.
wonderfully
Well,
for me.
takes care of- If you ever get one, scrape it good. A lot of grease can go through a dishwasher, especially,
Yeah.
so, yeah,
Thank you.
yeah,
Thanks.
thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Okay, on to old business number 1, sanitary code violations and fines for 4 Tri-Town Circle. I believe we've
Wow, and that's pretty good.
had this one come up in the past, but if you could kind of bring us back up to speed on it.
Okay. I'd like to make a request too, as far as the scheduling on the agenda. Is it possible to put old business first? The previous boards wanted old business second, and other boards that I had dealt with years ago always had old business first.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Because you don't actually spend that much time on them, because you've already gone through
Yeah.
a lot of the
You're
history.
saying.
Right, right.
So if I could make that way we don't have Brian sitting here
Yeah.
for 40 minutes
Yeah, I always feel bad when we don't.
when we know his story already.
Right, right.
That sounds good.
Makes sense to me. Yeah, yeah.
Sounds good.
Do we need a formal vote on that, or are we all, I don't think, that's just a
No,
matter of
that's just
administration,
merely,
so.
it's just something that I've always thought it, but previous boards wanted new business first, and,
Yeah.
but we have basically a new board, so I wanted to ask. 4 Tri-Town Circle. Okay, where are we? November 30th. How far back do you want me to go? All right, let me just do what I have here. Yesterday, I did have a telephone conversation with Attorney Wall, as he called to ask a couple of questions. He asked if there was a way to get 4 bedrooms for the dwelling. I had previously emailed him my opinion on the number of bedrooms, which was 3. Attorney Wall told me that Matt Costa had also reviewed the file and came up with 3 bedrooms as well. Attorney Wall asked if a denitrification unit would be enough to grant 4 bedrooms. I told him that it was based upon the property land area. We then discussed the nitrogen aggregation plan option, but realized that it was a Falmouth municipal well that the Zone 2 was connected to, and not a Mashpee well. I informed him of this so that he could check with Cape and Islands Engineering to make sure any credit land was based in the same Zone 2. Attorney Wall stated that the septic design was not completed, and that he could provide an update to the board. As far as historically, the orders of the board decision of September 7th, 2017 meeting are still in effect, which were, the board voted to have weekly inspections of the septic done and pump as necessary to prevent a public health hazard, a 4-week extension for the design and installation date of the septic system. The health agent was to determine the legal number of bedrooms, and the fines were suspended so that they would not continue accruing. At that point, on September 7th, the next board meeting was to be October 5th, but that was canceled due to a conflict with a religious holiday. And since 2 requests for continuances were requested and granted by the board for the October 12th and November 2nd meetings. So it has been a while since we've discussed this, but that's where we are right now.
Okay. Attorney Wall, if you'd like to.
Sure.
on behalf of this, please.
I don't disagree with anything that Mr. Harrington said. So I represent the property owner, Richard Halpern. He bought the property in 1985, and when he did so, it had a layout of 5 bedrooms, and he's operated the property that way ever since. He's come to the attention of the board because of a problem with the septic system. And you might recall that when I appeared at the first hearing that Mr. Harrington mentioned, my client had missed a show cause hearing, and the board was considering issuing some fines and was demanding floor plans. And so I appeared, I explained that there were some reasons why he had missed the hearing. The board granted a continuance, suspended the issuance of the fines, so that my client could prepare a plan to come before you. So he has hired Matt Costa of Cape and Islands Engineering, and Mr. Costa has done the work necessary and is basically has an existing conditions plan on his computer. The reason why we're not here with a design is because of this bedroom issue. Mr. Harrington did send an email to me a couple of weeks ago, and he gave us his opinion that it was 3 bedrooms. Mr. Costa and I have both looked at available records, and it appears that the 3-bedroom septic system that's in the ground that's currently having some issues appears to be lawfully built, but there's a second septic system on the property that there does not appear to be records for. So my client is trying to process this because there's obviously a big difference in value between a 5-bedroom house and a 3-bedroom house, and it's in a zone 2, so it's not a simple question of having a 5-bedroom system designed. So some of this was a little bit late breaking. It doesn't appear that we're as far out as it might seem. The 2 continuances were requested because of scheduling conflicts. I had other hearings in other towns, and I did explain to Glenn the other day, I've actually been a little sick before Thanksgiving. So late breaking news is that what my client is now considering are options to deal with the bedroom situation. One is to continue to research available records to see if we can demonstrate that there were 5 lawful bedrooms. We're not giving up on that yet, but we are exploring other alternatives. After I had that phone call with Mr. Harrington yesterday, I had a further conversation with Mr. Costa, and it appears a denitrifying system is just simply not possible because there's not enough land area. So I did ask Mr. Costa, and my client asked him to prepare proposals for preparing a nitrogen aggregation plan to come before the board. And we are aware, because Mr. Harrington made it clear to us about where the well is in Falmouth. And Mr. Costa says that he has land available to satisfy that requirement.
Okay.
And I actually have 2 proposals that came in on the 28th that my client is now reviewing. And I say all of this to simply demonstrate that we are in fact working to solve this problem, but it's a little bit more complicated than just designing a system because of the ramifications to the number of bedrooms. So basically, having said all of that, I would respectfully request a further continuance so we can finish this work on the research and then have the client make kind of an executive decision about which direction he's going to go, and then we can come back before you with a plan.
It's a pretty small lot. It's only .29 acres, so under Title 5, I mean, they'd be allowed 1 bedroom without doing something special.
Right.
If you were building new on this, so that's a pretty small lot. Now,
I think the nitrogen aggregation plan is the way to go.
I kind of agree, yeah. So,
Just because it's, there's no other records for that second system. I don't know when those other bedrooms were used. I didn't, there's no record of the bedrooms being there. He said, the owner may say were 5 bedrooms there, but there's nothing that proves that they were there.
Right.
There was an initial request by the owner previous to Mr. Halpern owning it to get a multifamily dwelling there, but that was denied by ZBA. And so, again, but there were no floor plans. I looked back into that application. There were no floor plans or anything that were issued to show that the bedrooms were there and that they were just going to add the accessory dwelling unit into the structure. So we did go back and look and try to research to find what and how many bedrooms there were back to, I think it was 1982 was when, or 1985, it was just before, or 1984, it was just before Mr. Halpern purchased the property. But the neighbors were up in arms and had petitions signed, and so there was some pushback from the neighborhood for them to go to a multi-dwelling unit, so that, and the ZBA denied it at that point. But again, there was nothing submitted. I went back through the minutes at the town clerk's and couldn't find anything that showed a floor plan with the additional bedrooms. Because we may have, if the floor plans were submitted, we may have to accept them because they were submitted to ZBA as existing, just not as a multi-dwelling structure.
Right.
And just to be clear, it's not being used as a multi-family structure at this point.
At this point, it should not be, no.
No,
It's not?
at this
Okay.
point, my client has rented it to a single family.
Okay.
But yet, and again, I don't dispute anything that Mr. Harrington said, but that was the property owner before.
That's correct.
Yeah, according to the assessing records, the first owner took title on May 9th, 1983, so presumably that was built right before that. They only owned it for 2 years. I guess they ran into all that trouble that you mentioned.
Right.
And then my client came along and bought it in May of 1985. And he says to me that he's not made any alterations to the property in 32 years. One more point about, again, the weightiness of the decision is, it's not as simple as just saying, okay, we're going to do an aggregation plan. The proposals are in the tens of thousands of dollars. So my client has to decide on the cost-benefit analysis of, do I spend that money to keep these bedrooms that are there, or do I make some floor plan alterations to do away with a bedroom or two and have a standard 3-bedroom septic system designed? And we're going to make that decision rather quickly, but it just, as I said, this kind of was all kind of culminating into this point. So we're seeking just another reasonable continuance to continue this project and then come before you with a plan.
And there's nothing on the original building permit or anything?
For the 3 bedrooms, not for the additional.
Trying to think if there's any other, did you check registry of deeds? I don't know, maybe the registry has something, I mean, there's a lot of documentation. I know mortgages typically don't, they typically don't say how many
If
bedrooms.
there were
or-
conservation issues that would have been submitted along the way, then I would probably say yeah. But I didn't see any conservation
Right.
documents that were made to kind of memorialize the number of bedrooms.
Right. And to, just to refresh my memory, the original Title V failure was due to groundwater separation?
I thought it backed up into the home.
It
That's
backed up into
right.
the house.
Yeah.
Oh, it did, okay.
But I do believe groundwater was also an issue.
I'm not sure it backed up into the house. There was a,
Into the surface, because
Yeah.
didn't we condemn it and the tenants needed to vacate the property? Am I remembering that correctly?
I think we had discussed possibly doing that, but then we continued it that
Oh,
way.
yeah.
It's in the inspection report that any portion of the SAS cesspool or privy is below high groundwater elevation. So I don't know if it was below, but it didn't have the 4 feet to meet our regulation.
Okay.
So it was groundwater.
And if I recall, there was evidence that something had backed up into the riser of the tank. Am I remembering the same case?
Yeah, evidence
Ronnie
back up into the riser.
That's what it was.
Ronnie had gone out. And is the tank being pumped at a relative frequency right now?
Yes, and it's being inspected by Mr. Halperin's, he owns other properties in town, and it's being regularly inspected and pumped as needed. I don't think it backed up into the house, but you may recall that what actually kind of brought this all to the board's attention was that there was a tenant that made other health code violations, complaints that were all addressed, and while the inspector was on the property, it's my understanding, observed the outside.
Yeah.
And went to go look at it, and then determined that it was in a state of failure. So,
That's
The January.
fitting with what I'm kind of remembering.
January 25th letter does state that there was evidence of leaching facility failure.
Yeah.
And that was the original. Let me just see what Ronnie had. It was,
yeah, because while Mr. Harrington's looking that up, the date of this form filled out by the health inspector was January 19th, 2017.
Yep.
So I think this is what brought them to the property, and they observed that condition.
Yeah, that sounds
So there
familiar.
weren't any complaints by the tenant about the septic. It just happened, by happenstance, they were there for other matters.
Okay.
I thought that the tenant had said that it had backed up.
I feel like I remember that too.
Remembering it into the shower or something, but
Me too.
I don't remember that.
It wasn't.
it might
I don't
not
have
be
the
the same
previous-
property that I'm thinking of, so.
Ronnie wasn't specific on the inspection report, but I thought she mentioned that. Let's see, it was.
Have any of the previous meetings minutes?
I know, I don't have
Maybe
them on me.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
Well, there was a follow-up inspection February 22nd. And System 1, the tank is under a driveway, H10, leach pit has staining to top of riser. And System 2, the leach pit, goes to a leaching field and, which was full to the top. An aggregate was observed in the tank for System 1, that means that the concrete had started to decay in the tank in System 1. So the tank was decaying, it's H10 in the driveway, and the leach pit had staining to the top of the riser for System 1, and System 2, the leach pit leading to a field was full to the top. So both, I thought it was one of the complaints that the system had backed up into the shower, into the lower unit.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
I obviously don't know because I'm the representative, but I don't see anything in this report. And then after that inspection that you just mentioned, there was a letter issued January 25th.
Yep.
That talks about a number of different violations, the kitchen window, exterior entrance light, et cetera.
Yep.
And it's at number 4 says, evidence of leaching facility failure was observed. It doesn't say anything about backup or anything like that. And then it goes on to the next thing. It talks about smoke detectors and carbon monoxide. I honestly think that the inspector came because of this tenant complaint about lots of stuff, and happened to observe that the septic was, in a state of failure or about to fail. I don't think there were any public health complaints about backing up or anything like that.
Yeah, the septic wasn't open outside though at that time.
There's probably another property.
It had to be something
It could be,
inside
I
the
know there were a
dwelling
few
that,
I remember.
that the
Yeah.
assistant health agent saw for her to fail it. So that, because
I
it
do
wasn't
remember
until February that they went back and looked at the system outside.
When you
But,
talked about this?
So that's why I just think it had to be something inside the
Since I've been
unit
here
that she
for
made
August.
that decision on.
Would standing water be an indicator? Because, can I approach for a second?
I'd have to, as far as the,
Yeah, there was a thing, it says yard, and then it says standing water observed,
now 602 is
something else.
just something else. It's the 300
There they are.
is the.
August 3rd.
300, 750, evidence of leaching facility failure observed. She just wasn't specific on what she saw, but she did cite it, and that's why it was put in the letter.
Yeah.
So I'd have to ask Ronnie specifically to see what had observed. I think it was something that was inside the shower,
Okay. But, you know, it was continued the last time, and there haven't been any complaints. Mr. Halpern's been doing the inspections as the board asked or required.
Where we
Understood.
discussed it being potentially unfit for
Mhm.
human habitation. Like, I don't know that we necessarily would have done that for just surface backup.
Yeah, I think we also had a concern with this being in proximity to a public supply well.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to find out how far away that well is. For some reason, it's not showing up on Oliver where exactly that.
Didn't you look it up and it was a Falmouth well?
It is, yeah, yeah. Well, there's actually two, I think this is the Falmouth facility, and then there's another building here that I believe might be for the base or something like that. But I don't know where exactly on these pieces of land the actual wells are. I would assume they're in close proximity to the pumping buildings.
Right.
I'm just curious as to how far this dwelling actually is from the public supply well across the street, if we're within.
It's not, I don't believe there's a public supply well across the street,
No?
because the well for the Zone 2 is actually pretty far down into Falmouth. It's actually south of
Oh, okay.
28.
I wonder what that is then, because it says water, Falmouth Water Department on the front of the building. That's
Maybe it's just a
what's
pump
throwing it. I
It
guess
may
it could
be
just be
a
a pump station.
pump station,
Mhm.
but I don't believe because that's not the well that the Zone 2 stems from.
Mm.
Right, okay. Yeah, I see that's,
Now, with the Zone 2 technically falling in Falmouth, is there any complication with the nitrogen aggregation plan utilizing land from another town? Is there anything else that needs to be worried about, just simply permission to use the land,
Not that I
basically?
know of,
Okay.
as long as the credit land is within the same Zone 2, doesn't matter what town it's in, it just has to be within the same Zone 2.
Okay.
And it's a state regulation, so
Right.
it's not something that the board has put further restriction on at the local level.
Right.
We're going entirely by the state regulation.
Mhm.
So I don't think there's any other thing that has to be looked at the local level,
Mhm.
as long as we follow the state regulation.
Okay.
So are we just approving the aggregation plan for now?
I
Like
think the
with-
request is to approve a continuance at the moment.
Okay.
yeah.
How long of a continuance were you looking for?
Several weeks would be good. Do you know when you're going to meet in December?
I don't know that several
14th.
weeks is
Well,
something
well,
that.
maybe I'll rephrase a few weeks. How about we're December 1st is tomorrow. The 14th or the 21st?
14th,
I
right?
believe
14th is
14th.
what-
Is that when you meet
The
next?
14th is our set meeting right now.
Mhm.
Okay,
I know one member can't make the 21st, but it'll be up to the other board members if they want to have a meeting on the 21st.
okay,
We haven't actually fully gotten that far with our scheduling,
okay,
just the way that the holidays have fallen, so.
okay. What is the board's policy on the amount of time ahead of a meeting that things have to be submitted?
A week.
A week. All right, so if you give us to the 14th,
week for a
you're really
meeting.
only giving us a week to get done.
Mm.
So why don't we try to do that then? Unless, if there's no hearing on the 21st, I can't really ask for that, so.
And this, I mean, it is a complicated situation, but it has been continued for a while.
Yeah.
How far are we willing to take this,
Mhm.
is my concern. You know, I definitely understand the complexities of the issue and the fact that unfortunately there just is no documentation, but
It's
at
been
some
so
point.
long.
Right, at some point, we need to just stop continuing it, is my concern. So,
And just to be clear, the request for continuance is to further argue the point of the number of bedrooms, or to
I don't know.
get in more information?
It's to
or-
gather more information and for my client to review those proposals that came in the day before yesterday and make a decision about whether he's going to go for the aggregation. Let me rephrase. If we don't come up with documentation for the bedrooms, then my client's choice is to modify the floor plan to reduce the bedrooms to 3 and come in with a conventional replacement plan for the 3-bedroom system that's in the ground, or come in with a nitrogen aggregation plan for a 5-bedroom. That's where I think this is going, because we have pretty much exhausted the research. I don't think we're going to find anything more.
I think it's fair to grant one more continuance to allow the client time to reflect on this decision, but I would not be willing to go much further than that. I mean, I think all avenues have pretty much been exhausted at this point.
I agree.
I would agree with that.
And I appreciate that, and I said this earlier, just for the record, the 2 prior continuances, we would have asked for them anyway, because Mr. Costa everybody in this business is so busy right now. We wouldn't have had the plan before, and I had scheduling conflicts, so I just want to make the point that it's not like we've been here 3 or 4 times.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
We understand, but
We just kind of finally got everything together before the holiday, and we're trying to sort it out. But if you could grant us the 2 weeks, I would appreciate it.
What are we looking at for the January meetings? Do you have the dates for the 2018 calendar, Brian?
I don't believe I have them. Has Fran emailed them out recently?
I know, I didn't see one.
Or have you? I don't recall.
I don't think I've gotten that far out.
Well,
So
I mean, if we just go with
our
our typical schedule,
two.
first and third Thursdays, so the first Thursday would be the 4th.
Thursday,
The
January
third
4th.
Thursday would be the 18th.
4th and the 18th.
January 4th. I'll be in Iceland.
That sounds
sounds fun.
colder than here.
The 4th would essentially be a 1-month
But we only need
continuance,
2.
which would basically give us 3 weeks to come up with our plans.
Just need 2, right? Are you going to be here?
Yeah, I'll be here.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's fair.
To go into January or to go until the 14th?
I mean, since this is a continuing agenda item, I feel like, he's really got 2 weeks to get the documentation. I mean, our 1-week limitation is usually for somebody getting on our agenda, correct?
Yes.
If you were to provide,
If we
so
just count
this
on
will,
him
this
being
will
on the
automatically
agenda.
be on the next agenda. They could provide documentation up until the meeting, so you would,
Right.
you'd really have the 2 weeks between now and the meeting
Okay.
to, yeah. And it's more if you were requesting a new item for the agenda, that we would have the 1 week. So, I feel like 2 weeks is adequate to assess that situation and make any further determination of the number of bedrooms and sort it out.
Are you
So
saying the 14th?
And would we be expecting a septic plan to accompany them to this meeting then? I think
I
that's
would-
pretty fair.
I would think that's fair. I would think that's fair. It's, it's been since April, so time to get it done. Well,
Okay.
January, really, and longer. Who knows how long it's been
All right.
backed up.
For
So, yeah.
December 14th.
I move that we continue the hearing for the sanitary code Title V violations at 4 Tri-Town Circle to the meeting on December 14th, allowing that Attorney Wall comes back with a decision and septic plans also.
I'm sorry, what were the 2 items?
Coming back with a decision on either the nitrogen aggregation plan or the reduction in bedrooms and also septic plan.
So you want the plan completed by the 14th?
Correct.
Okay.
And there's no other stumbling block that they could run into if they decided to go with a nitrogen ag plan. They could, in theory, do 5 on that lot.
With a nitrogen aggregation plan, it just depends on how much land they would need for credit.
Right, right, okay. I just want to make sure there's no other restrictions so that that's off the table anyway.
No, because
Waste of
that's
time.
something that Cape and Islands is pretty adept at doing, so I don't think it's,
Right.
any delay would be necessary for Matt to put together the grant of easement restrictions
Right.
and the plans.
Okay.
If he has the land available as a land surveyor, I'm sure he knows what it would take to prepare the credit land survey.
Okay.
And at least those two, well, those approvals can be done at two different times. You can approve the nitrogen aggregation plan and not have the septic plan be done. But in this case, I think we'd be looking for everything to be done.
I would agree
Yeah,
with
I
that.
think so too.
I would agree with that, yeah. Yeah.
So I think it just comes down to the decision being made by the owner.
Okay.
So I second that.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Attorney Wolf.
See you on the 14th.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, and our final item for this evening, review of fines for Blast Fitness at 106 Falmouth Road.
Good job. Good job.
I mean, I understand the
That would go on.
scheduling issues, you know,
But that's a long time
it's
to go on,
been,
yeah.
it's been ongoing, it needs to stop.
Want me to-
This is,
Yeah, just bring us up to speed on where we're
Okay.
at with this.
it's gone on for 7 years.
Fines were issued back in April and received by Blast Fitness on April 10, 2017 for failure to fix violations found on March 21st. 5 violations were not corrected and 10 days had elapsed, so a $5,000 fine was issued. And to date, no fines have been paid. On November 8th, 2017, I got a phone call from Mr. Jason Williams, reported Vice President of Operations for Blast Fitness. Mr. Williams sent a letter, email, at my request explaining the situation with Blast Fitness Management. The letter was forwarded to the board members. In the letter, Mr. Williams questioned the calculation of the $5,000 fine, but after rereading the wording, I believe it to be correct. The order letter that Blast received in March cited $1,000 per day fines, so we could certainly revert back to that. We issued a $100 per day fines for 5 violations for 10 days, which got it to the $5,000. And he was stating that it just said the 5 violations times $100 a day, and just seemed to ignore the fact that the violations had occurred for 10 days. And because it didn't say specifically that each fine, each day's violation is a separate violation. Each day's violation is a separate offense, where the 5 violations times 100 times the 10 days is $5,000. So I still believe that the 5,000 is absolutely the basis for the fine. And to go back, I looked historically, in order to get a sense of the time spent at Blast Fitness over the past 7 years, we did some research and found that 34 inspections for 22 complaints have been performed. Typically, this board tries to cover the costs at $100 per inspection. That's $3,400 worth of health agents' time, not to mention the time writing the order letters and the certified mailers. So I think as far as the time that we've spent there, we've just kind of been banging our heads against the wall trying to get them to do anything. Every time we go back there, they have a different manager there. There's just,
The
we
changeover.
continually go back for mold complaints, we continue to go back for the bathrooms either being broken or not operable. And the equipment is dusty and dirty and not being cleaned in between people using them. So we're just kind of going round and round here. And I did explain this to Mr. Williams when I spoke to him. And he said, no, things will be different from here on out.
But he's been there since April. He's had 9 months to see that his facility is
Right.
dirty.
And
Okay.
Blast Fitness actually was the management company for ownership for this facility back to 2010.
Right.
So that's why I went back the 7 years. And whether he says that, no, it's different management, it doesn't matter. It's still all under Blast Fitness.
Right.
Plus, he's been there since April, and it's now December.
Right, and then
Because he said things would change.
They submitted a $500 check, thinking that we would bite and accept that, and with his other excuse and his own calculations of the fines, which I don't agree with.
No?
So I don't think that accepting the $500 fine is worthy of the time that we spent there. And I think that, I did not, at the last meeting, because we had not heard from anyone, I did ask the board to vote to send it to council for a complaint to be issued. But now that we had heard from somebody and they had requested that we look at it one more time, I have not sent it to council. But now that we have their written opinion on how they want to move forward, I did want the board to at least get that and look at that, and then vote if you wish to accept the fine or not accept the check for $500, or not accept the check, or to continue to forward this to council. Then we can certainly do that. I think that would be the way to go, just because this has been such a long process.
Did the $500 check come with the expectation that they were making a payment plan or something up, or was it pretty much just,
He thinks that's all he owes.
The one-time fee.
Okay,
With the excuse that, saying that the letter did not explain the calculation of the fine correctly.
Okay.
And they had received the previous letter in March, which said you're gonna be fined $1,000 a day. And in this case, we only fined them $100 per violation, not $1,000 a day. We can certainly go back and fine them $1,000 a day for the 10 days and make it $10,000, because they were given notice of that, and they received that notice, and they still failed to make the repairs. So I think council would have plenty of backup to say that we can certainly collect the 5,000 or more if there's some question in that.
okay.
And whether he says it's new management, it's not new management, it's still all Blast Fitness.
Yeah.
And when was the last inspection done there? Has anyone been back since April?
I was wondering about that.
I mean, have any of these issues even been fixed?
I think Ronnie went back in September. She was there on September 20th and October 10th.
When was the last time?
So at this point, everything has been corrected. It's just that they just took forever to even address anything, and I do believe it was because of their management.
But then how come you wrote in November that they're working on the floors and it'll take a couple weeks? And
Right, yeah,
they're cleaning it. It doesn't make sense.
No.
Well, I think they're looking to replace the Band-Aids that have been put in place, because that's essentially what they've been doing, is just kind of reattaching the places that come up, just so that it appeases the inspections that when we go back. But certainly the floors are in need of replacement, and I think that's what Mr. Williams has alluded to in his letter.
And when did you say the last inspection?
I don't really care how much it costs them to do.
I know.
Because it's a long time coming.
It is. It should be intact, washable material. When was the last inspection?
Last time we were there was October 10th.
Okay.
There's that, that's what I'm looking for.
September 20th, there was an inspection done, and then the October inspections were follow-up for that. entranceway, observe front entry dirty. um, With pieces of debris. Also hallway leading to daycare room was dirty. Shower stalls in 2 and 3 in the men's locker room were observed leaking, so the fixtures are continually breaking. And then the assistant made follow-ups to make sure those were repaired, which I believe they were.
Thank you.
And the bigger issue too here, which we need to have a conversation with them on, is the ability to control the moisture. That they're the ones who decided to put a gym inside of a warehouse. And for a long time, the roof was leaking, which we did work with the property owner to fix, and so that was fixed. But still, all of the roof drainage, it's a flat roof, and so all of the storm drainage comes down through piping, which sweats, because you've got a warm space and you're putting cold water, cold rainwater down the interior downspouts, and they sweat, and they cause mold all around them, and the doors, none of the doors are insulated, and they have no way to control the moisture. And that's why the mold has been such a continued problem in this place. And you have people going in there, working out, sweating, they're hot, and it's the cooler air, and so they're causing their own amount of perspiration and moisture, and they're not cleaning the equipment. The equipment gets moldy just from the use, and it's, and we chase our tails trying to keep them to clean it, and we go back there month to month, and there's different people managing the
Yeah.
place. And, you know, they blame the managers for doing it, and managers, you know, basically refuse to do it because they can't keep up with it. And they won't hire a cleaning crew to come in and clean it, and they won't hire any equipment to go in there to control the moisture. And they're the ones who made the decision to put a gym in a warehouse.
And they've also made the decision not to hire someone to correct some of these problems.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
It's been going on a long time.
Yeah.
So I think we should still fine them $5,000.
Yeah, I agree.
And like when, they should pay that immediately, or what is our, but then, how much time do they have for the protocol for?
I think they've run
Immediately.
out.
they've already run out
Yeah,
of
they've
time,
already
so
run
at
out
this
of
point,
time.
we would be forwarding this to council,
Yeah,
correct? For
yeah,
collection.
just forward it to council.
Yeah, I think we
Yeah.
should do that.
So I guess we would just be rejecting their payment of $500, which
I would like to do that.
frankly seems like a disrespect to the board, to me.
Insulting.
And keep the fines at $5,000 and forward to council. But, yeah, clean up your act.
Right.
Comes down to that.
And then when do you think Ronnie will go back in? Is it Ronnie that went in? When do you think we'll do another inspection?
I think everything has been taken care of now, so I don't know when we would go back.
Okay.
We go back when we get called
Okay,
for complaints.
okay.
And we have the ability to fine up to
$1,000 a day under the nuisance, under 111, 122.
1,000. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I would suggest for ourselves or for any future board members that if a situation like at this location comes up again, to look at a stronger fine. So,
I move that the board does not accept the $500 check from Blast Fitness because it does not meet the fines set forward by the Board of Health. And I also move that we forward the fines to council for issuance of the complaint in court, or at least a demand letter where council can negotiate on our behalf.
I second that.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, we don't have any additional topics. We do have an executive session on the agenda. Do we have any reason to go
I
into
have no
executive
new
session?
information on that, so I do not believe we need that.
Okay, all right.
Nice.
Motion to adjourn?
I second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.